So I'm here with Alex Clark, and you are. What's the title you are in CASA?
I'm the CEO of the Consumer Advocates for Smoke-Free Alternatives Association. And in case the mic didn't pick that, I'm the CEO.
You're the CEO?
Yeah.
Oh, you have the mic.
All right.
So, we have lots of things going on. Okay, I'll take the mic.
Yeah.
I need to ask the question, sorry. We've seen a lot of things going on in the United States when it comes to regulation and when it comes to everything from flavor bans to PMTAs, where different vaping companies need to have their products approved for sales here in the United States. We've seen lots of, I think the numbers were 26 million applications for getting products approved, and like 23 has been approved for sale, meaning there's a lot of products that used to be around that shouldn't be around anymore. I want to know what does it look like for consumers in the United States? How do you guys get your products?
Well, first of all, I think it was 6 million applications, still with 6 million, 26 million, all massive numbers. It's applications for 6 million products, and as you noted, and as FDA is proud to disclose, they've authorized 23 products, 4 of which are actually e-liquids. They're all tobacco-flavored e-liquids, 4 or 5. There was some confusion the other night of whether or not another one. It gets confusing when we get into all the court battles that are going on. Obviously, FDA has been taken to task for sort of summary denial orders for lots of products that were flavors other than tobacco. So yeah, the reality is, as far as something that someone would vape, there are half a dozen or less products that have been authorized. The rest are devices and batteries, basically. Was there a second part of that? Oh, how do people get there? What does it look like for us? And how do people get a hold of things? I think one thing to point out is that FDA, as a federal agency, doesn't actually have the human power to go into every vape shop in America or go into every manufacturer and shut things down. So there are still, and I don't know names of companies, but there are still companies out there who are able to fly under the radar, and they're based in states that haven't come down real heavy on vaping regulations. I'm from New York. New York has banned flavored products that have not been granted an authorization. Fortunately, that little clause is still in there that if they do get a flavored product authorized by FDA, you can sell it in New York State. But obviously FDA hasn't authorized anything. And we're seeing states, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Vermont was looking at a flavor ban. I think they're out of session now. Maine is still in session, but I haven't heard a lot of high confidence about that bill passing. But what we're seeing now is, like California, it's just an indiscriminate ban on flavors, regardless of what FDA authorizes. So what happens here is that since FDA is so understaffed, or they don't have the staff to do enforcement, states will pick up the mantle and update their statutes so that now the state is doing the enforcement job of the FDA. And so we're kind of waiting to see headlines, if it will be reported at all, about states cracking down on sellers. It is, I'm sure it's happening in New York. It's maybe not being displayed with a lot of fanfare in the media, but the town where I'm from, it's a small town. At one point, there were 5 vape shops serving a population of 20 to 30,000 people, which is actually much larger. It's a rural, we're in the lower income rural area of northern New York. But all of those vape shops have since converted into head shops. So they're selling glass pipes and bongs and CBD and stuff like that. And some of them have sort of pivoted a little bit to selling, other tobacco products or nicotine pouches. As far as I know, in my town, if you know the right convenience store to go to, you can just ask for a menu, and they've got it somewhere in a back room, and they'll still sell. It's not on display. You just kind of have to know. And the state actually tried to crack down on that this year as part of our budget. New York has a reputation for very policy-heavy budget bills, and so banning flavors indiscriminately and actually penalizing retailers for having product on site was part of the proposal. It was eventually stripped out, thankfully. But so depending on where you are in the United States, you're either buying it under the table at a gas station, ordering online, or you still have vape shops in your neighborhood. And there's Mark Sliss from Michigan has been here. He's still running a vape shop. He's still helping people in his town quit smoking. And that's actually, I think, geographically, not necessarily population-wise, most of the country has not seen their state step in and just ban things outright.
So from that point of view, it seems it's not so bad yet. The policy seems awful and the regulation seems awful, but for users, hasn't been really a big change. You say since the flavor ban in New York. I mean, how hard is it to get flavored something that's not flavored at some sort of tobacco flavor, whatever that is?
Yeah, whatever tobacco flavor is. Well, in New York, you can still buy tobacco-flavored vapor products. In New York City, I believe all flavors of all tobacco products and nicotine products have been banned. But it's New York City. If you've been paying attention to cannabis legalization in New York, then you know that they're still dealing with illegal dispensaries or unlicensed dispensaries. It's really from looking at it from a population standpoint. Our major population centers, at least on the East Coast and West Coast, are living under some sort of flavor ban, for a lot of people, it's become harder to get the products. It's mainly, for people who are experienced and have been vaping for a little while, as a community, we've never really been that concerned about them because they've at least been doing it for a while. They've explored who the online retailers are, or they've got a relationship with somebody who is, a retailer in their town. It's really the impact that we expect to see and is starting to show up in some of the research. Abigail Friedman's work on this is already sort of showing. I know the Reason Foundation also looked at the Massachusetts flavor ban, showing that not only did people who were vaping go to mainly New Hampshire, a neighboring state, but there was an uptick in smoking among certain subgroups. So our biggest concern has always been people who are still smoking, who might want to switch to vapor products, but unfortunately they live in an area where flavors have been banned and they only get to try tobacco flavored products, which for me has always been kind of a trigger. I know that the flavor of a tobacco flavored vape, it's never going to be the same as a cigarette, but it's those notes, it's those flavor notes that are in tobacco that always remind me of a cigarette, and I do always feel a craving to smoke a cigarette when using a tobacco flavored vape. And so I think it's the people who have just recently switched or were thinking about switching there, and they are there's more millions of them. They are the ones who are probably most impacted by flavor bans.
That's the last one. I know you're a user of snus, and also nicotine pouches is kind of on the rise here in the United States, at least of what I heard. So how do you think the future is for harm reduction products if you take like nicotine pouches and snus into the account alongside e-cigarettes? Now with flavor bans coming for e-cigarettes, what's the story with the rest of the products?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of these laws are being written without any appreciation for nuance, and certainly the trend is disregarding the thorough scientific review that we are supposed to expect from FDA. So all flavored products are sort of on the chopping block, depending on where you live. And nicotine pouches will have to go through PMTA just like any other product. Right now, the only snus products authorized for sale are General Snus. That's the original mint, wintergreen, and I think there's a fourth one. I'm drawing a blank. And Camel Snus was on the market, I believe, prior to the Tobacco Control Act. So that's grandfathered in. Still waiting for a potential decision on a modified risk order, which I'm not sure, but I think might have been withdrawn. I don't quote me on that, but there's some. I think the popularity, the growing popularity of nicotine pouches, I have mixed feelings about it. Obviously we're a harm reduction organization. We've been talking about this continuum of risk since our inception. Actually, a couple years after the organization was founded, and we brought Dr. Carl Phillips onto our board, and he brought his education and knowledge and epidemiology about tobacco harm reduction, and taught us about what happened in Sweden. And so I would prefer people's perceptions of risks of actual, tobacco-based oral products be more aligned with reality. But if nicotine pouches is what's convincing people to switch away from smoking, then that's great, and I have no argument against it. I just wish we had that more nuanced understanding of the continuum of risk. But it's definitely a target. My hope is that states will be resistant going forward to sort of the propaganda about flavors are hooking children and all of these things. Pouches and snus, if we want to talk about a discrete tobacco or nicotine product, they are the most discrete. And so that's a really big point of fear and pressure that the anti-groups can use to lobby in favor of more restrictions on all of these products. But the fact that people are adopting nicotine pouches, I think, is great, and I hope that we see. I know that as far as Sweden is concerned, adoption of snus is more popular among men. Women are sort of lagging behind, and there are obvious issues, I think, with tobacco leaf snus products in terms of there are cosmetic issues. It's staining your teeth. Bengt Weiberg is from Sweden, has been working on the sting-free snus with the express purpose of appealing to women who smoke. And so I at least hope with the nicotine pouch adoption that people are. Again, it's a mixed feeling. I don't want people to be so overly concerned with tobacco leaf oral products, but in any way that people are consuming nicotine in a safer way is great, and I hope that America gets to hold on to the variety of flavors that we have. As people talked about at this conference, the idea of flavors keeping people engaged in the product. That's something that we saw with vaping. You used to be able to go to a vape shop and have a conversation about what are your favorite flavors in real life. And pick a beverage, pick a dessert, pick something that you actually like, and there's a vapor flavor there. And being able to come back in a couple weeks later and experiment with a different flavor, all of those things keep people engaged. And so I hope we can sort out all this flavor nonsense, and that we do continue to have access to a variety of flavors that will keep people engaged and entice people to come and try this instead of a pack of cigarettes.
Superb, Alex Clark. Thank you.
Thank you.